Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. My name is Shama Banerjee, and I am the Senior Editor at Nimbus 90, and we are delighted to be running this episode in partnership with Equinix. Every week in July and August, we are looking at In Conversation with Digital Leaders. This week, we have Perrin from the Very Group. She is the head of technology for Tech Ops, and she is going to be giving us a front row glimpse into their IT strategy and talking about how they have built their digital advantage throughout the last year. So Karen has had over 25 years of experience in the IT industry. She's performed lead infrastructure architect and CTO roles across government, defense, telecoms, pharmaceuticals, utilities, banking, and retail. So a lot of experience to draw on there. And Karen, thank you so much for being here today.
Welcome.
I will now hand over to Matt George. He is the Director of Segment Marketing for EMEA at Equinix, and he will be chairing the discussion. Matt joined Equinix in 2012 and is one of the company's global subject matter experts. He sits across the sales and technical teams and advises companies on ways to improve their connectivity, global reach, end user experience, cloud enablement through deployment of Equinix's global interconnection platform. Prior to joining Equinix, Matt worked for companies including Sky, Ladbrokes, and BT. So, Matt, thank you for being here today as well. I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you, Shama. Good afternoon. Hello, Karen. Well, I'm delighted to be able to continue our series of conversations today with a company that I think has got huge amounts of history. For those of you certainly my age, you will certainly remember the Littlewoods stores that used to be on our high street. And this is a great story of transformation, because that group has moved into a very state-of-the-art e-commerce business. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So another industry to really look into how transformation is happening. So I'm delighted that we have someone of Karen's experience with us today. So the first area I sort of want to dig into is, the last 14 months have been like no other for any of us in our business and our personal lives. But what are some of the key shifts in IT infrastructure planning, Karen, that you have seen in your role? And, a view, especially with the industry that you sit in, which was probably on an upward transformation curve anyway, but have you seen an acceleration in your transformation roadmap as a result of what's happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest two areas I think for us over the last 14 months are two, really. There's two areas. We've seen an ever increasing, obviously, requirement for online shopping, which has meant that we've had to bring products to the market faster. There's ever wider range of products that we need to get and services to our customers. And that's meant a massive change in our transformation itself. And also, we've got a lot of legacy systems, bringing those legacy systems into cloud infrastructure, into whether it's PaaS, SaaS, or IaaS solutions, to enable us to bring products to market much faster. So we've got a lot of legacy that we've had from our Littlewoods days, obviously, and some of that has been quite a bit of a challenge to get that to work faster, to get that to produce faster, and that's all. Like I said, we've had to transform our roadmap in doing that and bring it forward as quickly as possible. And that has meant looking at what can we do and develop in-house. What do we need to buy or rent off people with a SaaS or IaaS or PaaS solution? How do we transform those technologies? How do we get them to work in cloud? It's meant looking at our whole strategy around people and deciding what kind of people we need to work in the organisation to enable us to do that, what kind of technical skills we need, what kind of supporting infrastructure we need, how do we get those closed, the various closed, because we've got quite a few of them connecting faster. And it's been a real challenge for us. Luckily, we were already on that transformation journey anyway. We already knew what our vision was going to be over the next 5 to 10 years. We already knew what technologies we needed to bring in-house and support ourselves. We knew what underlying infrastructure we needed. And it was a matter of bringing that forward. Lockdown was significant in that, and using the networking technology that we already kind of had started to put in place with the Equinix work that we'd done with them, and getting those things connected together. So not only do we need our colleagues and our products working more agile and working faster and bringing that roadmap forward, we also need our partners to come on board with us and go through with that journey with us. And that's been really, really key. To have your partners working with you as one team has been really key in that kind of transformation.
Great. Sorry.
Yeah.
There was so a lot of preparation, I suppose, that was already in place before the pandemic happened. Yeah. But maybe if we just unpick that, you talked about, you've got the technology on one side and you talked about the people as well. So what have been your key challenges, one from the technology, but also from people? You know, it was a huge effect on obviously your staff and how you work. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's been a big challenge. It's very much a hearts and minds exercise as well as a technical one. So we come from a background, you know, we're purely office based. You know, you'd walk into the building at Perrin. We've got some really huge buildings in Speke in Liverpool, and it was full of a really big kind of vibe in there when you walked in. You'd even have models walking around. You'd have a lot of the clothes, you know, and products everywhere in different sections. And it was a big shift for the staff and our colleagues to think, well, I can't work in the office anymore. We've got to do our jobs from home. It was a big shift, and enabling that shift really was around looking at the technology we could provide to make that journey as seamless as possible and as easy as possible for them, but also thinking about their well-being and how that fit in with their family life. So we had to do a whole kind of shift and mindset win over really, to say, look, you know, we respect your family life. We know that, you know, like you've seen on the news, you know, there's kids running around in the background, there's pets, everything, you know, we have to be mindful of that and work with our colleagues to understand the challenges that we got during that time. And that was really hard, but we've provided a lot of support. So it's around the well-being of the colleagues, but also providing that technology to enable them to work from home much better. So fast connectivity, making sure that all the applications, even the legacy ones, are loaded quickly and they can access them quickly, securely, with flexibility, scalability, making sure that when we get peaks and troughs in the sales, such as, for example, when we launched the latest Xbox and the PlayStation, we had a huge surge in demand, enable that technology to cope with that, because our colleagues are on the front line with that. And as we're selling those products, we have to get more and more and more off for sale quickly. So we have to enable that technology behind it. That even goes down to providing them with the latest kit, whether that's an Apple or a Windows device, giving them secure login authentication using MFA. Even just those small things like that, and giving them that comfort and agility has helped with that transition.
So I think, as I said, we've talked to a number of companies in the previous series and for different sectors, and we're seeing this pattern. So, and I was also, you know, noticing that, you know, your office space. So when sort of as we go through now this, it always makes me laugh when people say it's a return to work. It's a return to office because we've all been doing work in the last 14 months. So you've actually, I think, remodeled the HQ to a much more collaborative workspace. That's been a big project for the very group, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been massive. So what we've kind of done away with is the idea that everybody has their own desk now. So, you know, we've kind of refactored the whole office so that really when we go in the office, we're going to collaborate. We don't just go in to sit at our desk, beavering away, doing our own little bit. We're going to collaborate. So I was actually in yesterday for a big strategy session with my team. So we go in, we collaborate. The office is built now for collaboration spaces to bring people together in that environment. It's much more modern. You don't get the traditional kind of rows of desks like we used to have. It's all kind of groups of meeting rooms and collaboration spaces. And it's much better, because that's what we should be doing. We should be going in to collaborate, and then having some thinking time at home to do the strategic pieces that you need to work on, all the BAU support. So I think the only people really that are in the offices quite a lot are the technical operations centre, because they need to be 24/7, and also our customer care team, who are on site 24/7 as well.
So I think we've all, as I said, we've sort of coped with this. We've sort of worked through, I suppose, processes. And one of the things that I heard when I talk to companies, that people say that we've moved from location dependent to location independent, which I think is quite a good way of looking at this. But I wanted to dig a bit more into your function, into the IT function. So again, in the early part, we were talking earlier about, IT has become very central to the organization, maybe more so now, because in the early part of that pandemic, they were seen as the department to solve, to enable this collaboration, to enable this remote working. So across the functions, if we talk about networks, if we talk about cloud, if we talk about infrastructure, where you concentrate, have you seen greater collaboration? Have you seen a change in the ways of working across that IT function?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, I mean, we entered into an agile tribe and squad model not long before lockdown, if I'm honest, and we were just kind of forming that framework within the organisation. And before that, we were traditionally, we used to have a whole massive solution architecture team and a kind of waterfall operating model. And it was a big transition for us. And not to say it's been without its challenges, but I think the way we've got over those challenges is working in a very collaborative way. So TechOps provide the kind of underlying, what we call the shared services infrastructure for all the different tribes who work in the various clouds. And we've got a number of clouds that we work on, AWS being our main one, but we also work with Azure, IBM, Oracle, and their clouds as well as some other SaaS providers. So we've had to work very, very collaboratively, and even if that means having people from my area and from TechOps embedded within those squads and tribes to understand and work with them on the challenges that they've got, whether that's through network connectivity, setting up the VPCs, etc., whether that's through enabling single sign-on and security tools and monitoring, whether that's to help them over BAU challenges with other third parties that we've got. It's just working with them and embedding people in those squads and tribes, but then also having a governance framework around that. So we've got various TDAs and design authorities set up where we talk about key design decisions, where we document patterns, we publish those patterns in a central area, we publish the guidance and principles and policies in the central area. And it's not to say it's not without its challenges, but as long as we've got a governance framework around that, and as long as we're constantly working with the tribes, sharing each other's roadmaps, working through the challenges together, then we kind of working through it. So it's been quite successful, really. We really enabled us to bring a lot of change at pace during lockdown, because we've been working in that way. I think the biggest challenge when you're working in an agile model is around the governance, and you need to make sure you've got that governance. So going in agile and working and failing fast and producing and working in sprints doesn't mean you don't need to have governance around it. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned that we've had, working collaboratively and having the governance in place.
And that's some really good insight there in terms of sort of what's probably shifted things further, maybe removed some of that inertia from ways of working. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things you said at the beginning, I wanted to go back to. We're now in a world where, from an IT perspective, consumption is a bit more on demand. We're consuming things as a service, and the relationship between CapEx and OpEx. So is there, the way you operate as a company, are you looking much more at, a flexible OpEx model, moving away from sinking money into sort of physical infrastructure and moving towards a much more virtualized play? Is that something that's on the roadmap?
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. Luke, we've had this principle for a couple of years now, principles across the organisation, where we will where we want to compete, we will build ourselves. Where we just want to enable our back office systems, we will probably buy a product which has already been developed, rent or buy it. So where we want to compete and differentiate. So that means moving away from a lot of the legacy systems that we've got now, which are in traditional data centres. And look, some of these applications, and I'm not joking now, are around 25, 30 years old, and some of the people who wrote them have now retired. So we've got a significant challenge on our hands in doing that. And some of the challenge around that is also convincing the exec around the migration to the cloud and changing their mindset around, how do we move from that traditional infrastructure where sometimes people feel more secure and safe with that to a cloud-based model, where especially from the legal and commercial departments, they might think, well, it's a bit more of a challenge this, and how do we get through, how do we make sure it's secure enough, how do we make sure we're not, our data's protected, etc. So it's been a bit of a challenge, and but yeah, we are getting there. So we've managed to move quite a bit of our estate. We've developed a lot ourselves using microservice technology, etc. in AWS, in Amazon. We're still on that journey. We've still got a bit of a challenge to go. We're moving to a lot of different SaaS solutions with some of our key providers such as Salesforce and Oracle, moving some of those back office systems into the cloud, because it makes sense to buy something off the shelf rather than try and develop something like that yourself. But where we do want to get products to market quicker, like our front end website, like our product supply services, those are the key areas where we're focusing on. Let's build something ourselves. Let's bring the expertise in house so that we can build it, support it, maintain it ourselves. But it's a big shift. And it's a big shift, like I said, in the mindset of people to understand, cloud is secure, the supporting infrastructure is secure, and it's flexible and scalable. And that's what we found, actually. It's, where you've got a traditional data center, trying to procure hardware or expand or scale your hardware in order to fit that demand is very challenging. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes it can take quite a few months. It's not a quick process. If you want to get something on site, or if you get a big spike like we had when we were selling the PlayStation, well, you need to scale your technology really quickly. Not only does the underlying infrastructure need to scale, but your networks need to scale. Yeah, you need to have that big bang. You need to have that throughput quickly, and then being able to ramp it down again. And that's the advantage of it. In addition, having that ability to connect your cloud providers very quickly as well. So we've had for example, an instance in lockdown where one of our legacy applications was hindering getting products onto sale. We very, very quickly had to migrate that to cloud, and I'm talking about within a week. We spun something up in cloud. We got the connectivity to it very quickly. We got the guys working on it, and within a week, we had it fully tested, productionized, and live, sending products to market on the website. So, it's something, you can't do that if you've got to wait 6 months for a link to be put in place or some infrastructure to be spun up. You need that to be working at pace, and that's what we've had to do, and it's been a big advantage for us. And I think the exec are seeing that now, and now we're getting the investment. So it's also cost savings as well. So what we have noticed is that there's significant cost savings to be made from having that pay-as-you-go model, from ramping up to reducing down. You've not got that infrastructure sat there running all the time. You can optimize it, you can automate it. It's so much quicker and so much more cost effective in doing that. And we're actually seeing that now and seeing those cost savings. And obviously those cost savings, then we can put them back into the business to look at more transformation that we want to do.
Yes, I think what you're saying back to me is a story we're now hearing, or a request we're now hearing a lot more from our customers. The ability we have at Equinix now, one of the advantages we can see across different sectors, but the ability to be able to offer customers services, both virtualized network and virtualized infrastructure, where previously, as you say, it would take weeks, possibly months to spin that up. We can now do that. We can now do that in hours, literally, and in some cases, minutes. Now, one of the things we talked about, we touched on cloud. So you're obviously got a multi-cloud strategy, and one that's pretty advanced. You talked about the front end website. You're probably using one cloud provider for that. The fulfillment side, there's other strengths. Could you talk a little bit about, when you first looked at that multi-cloud strategy and how it's evolved?
Yeah, we started off quite a while ago, actually. I think it's been about 8 or 9 years now. We've had our websites on AWS. We deployed that. We were one of the first retailers to do that, put it on in cloud. We're a bit of a trailblazer in that respect. We've always kind of do things first, and we've got a lot of forward-thinking people. So we put that on a long time ago, and then we looked at our capability and thought, if we're going to move faster at pace and we're going to compete, then we need to be able to develop our own solutions in the cloud. And we looked at the different cloud providers and decided, because we were already in bed with Amazon and they were probably the most advanced, that we would start working with them and putting our development products on them. So that's what we've been doing. But then we've looked at other areas. So, for example, we use Azure a lot, and we use Azure really for the identity and access management side. So Azure AD is now our single source of truth for IAM. We're moving all our legacy applications towards Azure and single sign-on. We're managing all our devices through Intune. So we've gone through from the traditional model of third parties managing our devices to bringing those back in-house and using Azure and the IAM functions within Azure to manage all that identity and IAM roadmap. So we've got a big IAM roadmap piece that we're moving on with now, and that's including rolling out single sign-on across all our different cloud providers. So we've done that using MFA. So that's one area where we're using Azure. We're not really using it for hosting. It's mainly for that identity and access management piece. Then we looked at the cloud strategy is developed looking at, well, what kind of capabilities do we need that we don't really want to develop ourselves? We want to be able to buy a product that's ready-made. So we're using IBM OMS like Sterling Commerce for our products. We're using the Oracle for our back office, so like HR, payroll, finance. Some of our retail solutions are using the Oracle Cloud solution. We're using Salesforce for our customer care and some of the technology we need around that space, customer care and marketing. So we've looked at best in breed and we've done analysis, and we've picked the ones that we feel suit us as an organisation and partners that we can work with and that can work in an agile way with us and on our transformation journey. So we've got a number of them, and connecting all those together has been key. One of the other areas as well was around how do we, we've always had a challenge with the network connectivity and around how we connect all these multiple cloud providers together, which is where Equinix have come in and really helped us. So we had the vision a few years ago, and it was a tough sell, I have to admit, moving away from a traditional fibre connectivity, point-to-point connectivity, to using somebody like Equinix. But we did a good sell with the exec, and we managed to get Equinix Cloud Exchange and Performance Hub in. And that's been a game changer for us, I have to say, because it means that we can connect a cloud provider at pace. Equinix have already got the fibre. We bought 20 gig connections of Equinix. We can connect those connections, we can virtualize them, we can spin up something very quickly. Even if you want to do a proof of concept with somebody, that we're running a number of them now. So we're looking at, for example, BMC, we're looking at how we do some connectivity with them for the batch orchestration. Other third-party providers where we've had POCs as well. We've been able to spin up connections really quickly. We've been able to increase those connections really quickly. And we've been able to monitor kind of the traffic. So it's given us a bit of security as well, having that kind of central point of networking connectivity for all our clouds, connecting through to our traditional data centers, as well as our new warehouse. So that was the first kind of component really in the strategy that we went live with during lockdown. Actually was our new warehouse that we've got down in the East Midlands, and they were the first end-to-end component using Equinix technology all the way through from the warehouse to the different kind of providers that they use as part of that journey. So it's been key. And we're still evolving. We're still looking at more options for cloud. So there might be instances where we use some of the Google facilities in cloud, and it all depends very much on what fits us as a business what suits the particular requirements of the solution that we've got, and doing that analysis really. So we've got, I would say AWS is our main one, but we do look at different cloud providers, and we have got a lot of them coming on board, and we're expecting more in the future.
No, I think that's, a great insight into when we look at an e-commerce business, the supply chain is actually very long, from the sourcing the products through to getting them in front of customers, and then you have the whole logistics and back end. And I'm sure a lot of the viewers here, that, well, we've seen growth across every sector of e-commerce in the last 14 months. But I was particularly interested in that multi-cloud strategy. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things, and you talked about it just then, was the fulfillment center. Now, these are all now very high tech, state of the art, the ability to sort of move stuff around. We see companies have, when we talk about the edge, we talk about the core in the edge. We see a lot of this in businesses. Do you see your fulfillment centers as being your edge, or do you see your customers being your edge? Can you talk a little bit maybe about that edge to core relationship that exists within your IT domain?
Yeah, I mean, our fulfillment center's key. You know what I mean? It's a key part of our strategy around, connecting with our customers, and that's got to be I'd say both really, because we've got to be able to meet our customers' demands, and we've designed that fulfillment center for future demands. So if we want to deliver by robot in future, we'll be able to deliver by robot in future. When we built that logistics center, we very much looked at what's going to be happening in the next 20 years from a customer point of view. What demands do they need from us? And we do a lot of engagement with our customers to try and understand what they might feel and want and need in the future. We have a lot of working groups with them, so we built that in mind really. So I would say both. It's a very, very key part of our strategy, and we can't move forward as a business without having that ability from a fulfillment center to be able to service those future needs. So it's been really key. We've built it with the future in mind. We're already seeing that advantage really with the customers, and the delivery times and the cut-off times and the next day delivery that we've been able to do with them. It's already having a massive effect. So I would say it's I would say both really.
So we've talked about agility, we've talked about multi-cloud, we've talked about how the business has really shaped for the future. So with your sort of view over the next 6 to 12 months, what are the key things for your team, and how does that sort of affect the company? Just to sort of close out on.
The key things for us, we've still got a huge strategy around from my team around our networking. So we've still got a lot of legacy network connections that we're trying to bring in house, trying to make more scalable and flexible. And it's that shift from the legacy environments really to the cloud. So it's the networking, it's the infrastructure shift. It's enabling those components to work in the cloud and developing them. So that's one area that we're really focusing on at the minute. And then the other area from my team's point of view is around identity and access management. So the secure connectivity and between all our different providers and our staff, our colleagues and our customers. So it's about how do we roll out IAM, how do we use the latest security tools and technologies, how do we make sure that people's data is protected as much as we possibly can. We've just, for example, we've just rolled out Splunk across the organisation, so the logging capture across every piece of hardware and software that we have now is really immense. That's the journey that we're currently going on within IT anyway, within my area, about the security and the networking, the flexibility, the scalability in the cloud, moving things to the cloud.
Great. So I think while we've been talking, and over the last couple of weeks as well, we've been running transformation polls, transformation questions. So I'm going to hand back to Shama, who's got some insights on that, and we can probably, I think, get your own view on some of these results that have come in. So Shama, what have you got for us?
Thanks, Matt. So the first question that we asked our respondents was, has IT become a more important focus in your business in the last 12 months? And we had a resounding yes. 86% of people were saying a big yes to that one. So Karen, what is your response to that? Has that been kind of what you've seen in the last 12 months from your experience?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think people have realised more now so than ever before that IT is the kind of it's a business enabler now, where I think a lot of people in the past might have thought it was more of a hindrance than an enabler.
Yeah. Well, it was when they needed to get something done, I think. Now it's a necessity, isn't it?
It's a necessity. It's an enabler. We can't move at pace without having that underpinning IT infrastructure, whether that's your networking or your servers or your cloud, whatever that is. People are realising, and I think the demand as such on IT and in our team has grown exponentially because of that, because people realise they can't work without us now. I've definitely seen that shift. More so now than ever before, I would say. More so now, definitely.
Definitely. The next question was looking at maturity. So we asked, how would you describe your digital transformation journey? And we gave people the option to answer beginning, maturing, or advanced. And again, we had the majority of people, 71 people, sitting in that maturing bit, that maturing stage. But we did have a handful of people sat in beginning and advanced, but with the majority sat in the middle. So Karen, what would your kind of advice be to those people sat in that maturing stage? How do they get into the next stage? How do they become advanced?
It's investment, really. Investment in your underlying technology, investment in the right people. And innovation, allowing people to innovate, allowing people to fail fast, allowing people to try new technologies. Every colleague's got a voice. Listening to the colleagues, listening to the people who've got the expertise in the right area. You know what I mean? It's not always the people at the top who've got the right answer. It's very often you get the people, the engineers, the technologists, the ones who've been doing this for quite a while and the experts of the field. They've often got the brightest ideas. It's listening to them and trying it out and allowing people to fail fast. I think that's the way we've kind of approached it. You know what I mean? Having trust in our colleagues who know what they're talking about, basically.
Yeah. I think one of the things I heard over the last 6 months, talking to a number of C-level IT leaders, was that even though people were, we were all getting a little bit tired of the virtual conversations and being remote, and especially some of the IT professionals were missing that ability to be able to work board. But one leader said that he'd found that the virtual forum had enabled some of the more junior members of his team to actually come forward, to actually feel that they were on a level playing field. And we were asking the question, what's the sort of challenge when we sort of return to a hybrid model? And he said, I really want to keep that. I really want to make sure that those people have the voice, because we've solved things in a different way. And we've created a different way of working. And I think that's one positive thing that's come out of this. And your approach, the agile model, it isn't a new model, but that ability to sort of just get everybody collaborating quickly, exactly. I think
I would agree with that. We've spent one of the things I didn't actually mention, really, to be honest, was around the journey of working people and the hybrid model, which we're going to adopt going forward, is those collaboration tools and rolling out of that strategy, which is what we've been doing. That's been a big plus for us. But again, I completely agree with you. We've seen that a lot more junior colleagues speaking up, giving their ideas. Like some of the best ideas that have come from our team have been from our more junior colleagues, because they've got that fresh view on things and they're bright, and it's giving them the chance to speak out. And before, they would have been very nervous about doing that, but having that video conferencing has allowed them to, like you said, to feel an 11 playing field, and that the voices are being heard.
Definitely. I think this links to, just to build on what you're both saying, this links to something that we saw in our research that we ran at the beginning of 2021, where we asked business leaders about what their biggest people management challenge was in the remote world. And the kind of number one thing was that employee engagement, morale. And I think that really kind of, I guess, is almost the flip side, but a challenge for business leaders now is, how do they get those people talking? How do they build that morale back up? So to come to the final question that we asked in our poll, we asked, which of the following is the most important to your business in the next 12 months? And the options we gave were IT cost optimization, developing the hybrid working model, including that return to the office, incorporating more virtualized services, network infrastructure, and finally, all of the above. And probably unsurprisingly, we had the majority answer all of the above. Almost 3/4 answered that. So, Matt, you are smirking at that. What's your response?
Well, there was something, I think, yes, obviously they're all very important and they all happen at slightly different stages, but it's something that Karen referred to in one of her earlier answers about when we were talking about investment, because, a lot of businesses have gone through a very difficult time of change during the last 14 months. And obviously the first thing you look at is cost cutting. But I think what we've seen is cost optimization. And we were starting to see it before the pandemic, when you were looking at, I don't necessarily want to pay for services when I'm not using them. I want to consume on an on-demand model. And I think that's all about cost optimization. So, and Karen's point about investment, it's about understanding the changes that are happening and are going to happen in the future, so that you are in this, we've always talked about a digital advantage at Equinix, but you have that capability to move. So the thing I'm always, I suppose, pleased to see in that is it's not about cost cutting. It's about, managing the business in a very new landscape.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's all of the above for us as well. Obviously, cost optimization is key, but the hybrid working model has been key for us. A very group that I would say they're a really good company to work for, and the culture inside the very group is really good, and they're very, very supportive of the colleagues. So making sure we've got the hybrid working model is really key for us, and making sure our colleagues are happy. But also the investment, we can't move forward as a business without that investment, and we need to make sure, we are identifying cost savings as we're going along, but that investment in our infrastructure, underlying infrastructure, I think more so than ever before is key within the business, and that's actually at the forefront of our strategy now. And I've not seen in previous years it wasn't as much at the forefront as what it is now, but it absolutely is now, and it's really key, and it's good to see, because we're getting the investment we need to enable our strategy now.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's a good place to end. I don't know if either of you have any closing comments, but we are almost coming to the end of our time now.
No, from me, I just think, as I said at the beginning, when we see different types of business that we've seen in these series, it's fascinating to see the common thread. But Karen, I'd personally like to thank you for being, so insightful about the strategy. I'm particularly fascinated about the whole multi-cloud approach, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem. Thanks very much for asking me.
Thanks, Karen, and Matt, thank you as well for hosting the conversation this morning.